by what has happened to us.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 74. I haven't uploaded my other video yet, and we're here. We're gonna work out for a minute. Your videos or downloads. Let's see your videos. All right. Yeah, I need to upload the other one. Yeah, so it's episode 74 today, and yeah, we're gonna get this done. I bought some new things. That I believe they're gonna be good for me. Let's see. That was yesterday. Yep. All right, cool. All right, guys. Well, let's get to it.
About who you are or what you've done.
Let's see what we can do today. I'm trying to improve, trying to get better.
Is just a construct. It is not real. What is real is the present moment.
So about this, hopefully, trying to get better with the core, because that's what I want. And let's get it.
Go is not to erase the past, to understand it, to see it as it is a fleeting experience, yes, but not one that defines you. The past has no power over you unless you give it that power. So let go. Not in a forceful way, not with resistance, but gently, with the understanding that life flows like a river. The water that is passed downstream will never return. And just like the river, your life is always moving forward. You cannot grasp at the water, it slips through your fingers. In the same way, you cannot grasp at time. The past cannot be changed, and it doesn't need to be. Letting go is not about rejecting your past, but accepting it fully, without attachment. You are here now, in this moment. The only thing that truly exists is now. So embrace this moment fully, without the weight of what was or what could have been. The future is unwritten, and in this very breath you are free to create it, unburdened by the illusions of yesterday. Just as a tree sheds its leaves in the fall, trusting that new growth will come in the spring, so too can you shed the past, trusting in your capacity for renewal. You are not what happened to you, you are what you choose to become.
Oh, it's hard.
The past, you see, is much like a shadow, a fleeting echo of what once was, but not what is. You tend to treat it as something solid, something you can grasp, but the truth is that it no longer exists. The past is nothing more than a collection of memories, stories we've told ourselves, and impressions that linger in our minds. And here's the curious thing about memories: they are not fixed. They shift, they blur, they bend according to our moods, our emotions, our current state of mind. What you remember is not an absolute truth, but a filtered, subjective experience. But the illusion of the past is not just in how we recall it, but in how we allow it to dominate our present. We are often trapped, aren't we? Trapped in a prison of our own making, thinking that what happened before still has a hold over us. Yet, if you were to look closely, you would see that the past is like a dream that has already faded in the morning light. It is gone, evaporated, leaving only traces behind. And yet we cling to it. We cling to the pain, to the failures, to the triumphs, even as if they are still happening. But they're not. The reality is that the past has no substance, no weight, except for what we give it. We relive it in our minds, we project it onto the present, and in doing so we limit ourselves, we imprison ourselves within boundaries that no longer exist. To truly understand the nature of the past is to realize that it is like smoke. You can see it when you try to grab it, it vanishes. You cannot hold on to it because it is no longer there. And so by clinging to the past, by allowing it to define us, we are choosing to live in an illusion. The real question is, why would we do that? Why would we choose to live in something that is not real, something that has already passed us by? The past, therefore, is not a force that controls you. It is simply a mental construct, an idea. And like any idea, it can be let go of. It is not real in the way the present moment is real. It cannot touch you, it cannot harm you unless you allow it to. We carry the past with us, often without even realizing it, like a heavy bag strapped to our backs. It's filled with all the things we've been through: regrets, mistakes, heartaches, and disappointments. These moments may no longer exist in reality, but we keep them alive by holding onto them in our minds. Every step we take is weighed down by this invisible burden, as if we are somehow responsible for keeping the past alive. And isn't it curious? We seem to believe that by carrying this weight, we are somehow protecting ourselves. Perhaps we think that if we keep our past mistakes and pains close, we can avoid repeating them. Or maybe it's just habit, the mind's tendency to return to what is familiar, even if that familiarity is painful. But what we often fail to see is how this burden affects us, how it pulls us down, limits our ability to move forward, to experience life as it truly is in this moment. Imagine for a moment the tension of constantly dragging the past along with you. It's as though you are walking through life with shackles on your ankles, never quite able to move as freely as you could. Every step is a reminder of what once was, of things that no longer have any real relevance to who you are now. And yet we carry them as if they are still happening, as if the weight of yesterday somehow defines the possibilities of today. But here's the paradox: the more we hold on to these things, the more power we give them. The past only has the weight we assign to it. The more tightly we cling to it, the heavier we give our mistakes and regrets life by refusing to let them go. And in doing so, we allow them to continue shaping us, even though they are long gone. In a way, this is a kind of self-imposed suffering. We continue to relive the past, bring it with us into the present, thinking that we are preserving some part of ourselves. But what we are really doing is preventing ourselves from living fully, from being present. This heavy bag we carry is not who we are, it is only a collection of moments that have already passed. Yet by clinging to it, we drag it with us into every new moment, and in doing so, we rob ourselves of the freedom and lightness that could be ours, if only we would let go. One of the greatest illusions we live under is the belief that we are defined by our past. We carry with us the stories of who we've been, the things we've done, the roles we've played, and somehow we come to believe that this collection of memories and experiences forms the essence of who we are. But is that really true? Are you truly the sum of your past actions, your failures, your successes, or the labels others have placed upon you? Think for a moment, who were you 10 years ago? 5 years ago? Even a year ago? You've changed, haven't you? In subtle ways, or perhaps in profound ones, but the person you were is not the person you are now. The experiences you've had may have shaped you, but they don't define the core of who you are. And yet many of us live as though we are bound to that past version of ourselves. We replay our mistakes, our regrets over and over, as if they are proof of who we are, and we limit ourselves by believing that what we've done somehow determines what we can do. But you see, this sense of self that we cling to, the idea that I am this person because of what has happened to me, is nothing more than a it's a narrative that your mind has woven, a story you tell yourself. And like any story, it can change. The self you think you are is not fixed, it is fluid, always shifting, always becoming something new. You are not bound to your past unless you choose to be. What we often forget is that this identification with our past selves is a kind of illusion. It is as if we have painted a portrait of ourselves based on outdated images, and then we expect that picture to remain true. But life doesn't work that way. Just as you are not the same person you were yesterday, you are not confined to the limitations of your past. The essence of who you are, your consciousness, your awareness, your ability to experience life is beyond any single moment or event. When we believe we are our past, we trap ourselves in a fixed identity. We say, this is who I am because of what I've done, and I cannot be anything else, but in doing so, we ignore the vast potential that lies within us. You are not your mistakes, your failures, or even your successes. These are just things that have happened to you, not who you are. You are something far more expansive, far more open than the sum of your past experiences. The real you exists in the present, in this moment. It is the awareness that is observing the consciousness that is here, alive and free. The past is only a memory, a shadow, and it does not define who you are unless you allow it. The self you think you are is not set in stone. It is fluid, it is evolving, and it is free to become whatever you choose in this very moment. The present moment is the only reality. Everything else the past. The future is either a memory or a projection of the mind. Yet we often live as though the past has a kind of substance, as though it still exists in the same way this moment does. But if you really look closely, you will see that the past is no longer here. It's like a ripple in a pond that is already smoothed over, leaving no trace except for the memory in your mind. The only thing that is real, that has any true presence, is this moment right now. And yet, how often do we actually inhabit this moment? We are constantly pulled away by thoughts of what has been or what might be. We allow the past to color the present, to overlay it like a filter, and in doing so, we miss the richness of life as it unfolds. The present is vast, experience of it by carrying with us the weight of what's already gone. It's as if we are walking forward with our eyes fixed on a landscape that no longer exists, trying to navigate the present while clinging to a map of a world that has already faded away. But in this moment, right now, you are free. The past has no power here unless you bring it with you. The chains that bind you to it are entirely self-imposed. If you let go of the stories, the memories, the labels, you will find that the present moment is infinite, full of possibilities that are not constrained by what has happened before. This is the space in which real transformation occurs, not in the stories of who you were, but in the awareness of who you are right now. The mind, however, loves to cling to the past because it feels familiar. It's easier to live in the memory of what was, to replay old events, than to face the uncertainty of the present. But what we often overlook is that the present moment is where life truly happens. It is the only place where you can act, where you can experience, where you can truly be alive. The past is dead, and the future is not yet born. This moment is the only reality, and it is vast, limitless, and free from the burdens of what has already been. When you bring your full awareness to the present, something remarkable happens. The weight of the past begins to dissolve. You see that it was never truly here to begin with. It was only a story, a set of images and emotions that you carried with you. But the moment you step fully into the present, you realize that none of that matters anymore. Here, in the now, you are unburdened, unchained, free to move, to act, to be without the weight of the past pulling you down. The beauty of the present moment is that it is always fresh, always new. Each breath, each heartbeat, each thought arises from the infinite potential of now. The past is static, unchangeable. The present is fluid, alive, and full of possibility. You don't need to be bound by what has been. You can create anew, moment by moment, in the freedom that the present offers. Letting go of the past is not a matter of force or struggle. It is an act of liberation, a release that comes not from effort but from understanding. So often we think of letting go as something difficult, something that requires strength, as though we must pry our fingers loose from the grip of old memories and experiences. But in truth, letting go is not about fighting against the past or pushing it away. It is about seeing clearly that the past no longer has any real hold over you, and in that understanding, the release happens naturally. Think of it like holding a rope. You may have been gripping it tightly for years, believing that it's necessary to hold on, that somehow the tension in that rope keeps you safe, keeps you connected to something important. But the reality is that the rope is tied to nothing. It's just hanging there, dangling in the air, and all the strain you feel is self-created. The moment you see that, the moment you realize that the rope is not pulling you anywhere, you can simply let go. There's no need to force it. The tension dissolves on its own. Letting go of the past is much like that. It's not a battle you have to win. It's not something you have to struggle with. It's a recognition that the past exists only in your mind, that it has no actual power here in the present moment. Once you see this clearly, the grip naturally loosens. You don't need to hold on anymore because you realize there's nothing to hold on to. The past is not a solid thing, it's just a collection of thoughts, images, and feelings that arise in the mind, and like all thoughts, they come and go if you let them. But often we resist this process because we feel that letting go means losing something. We fear that if we release the past, we will lose a part of ourselves, that we will somehow be diminished. We cling to old stories, old identities, thinking that they define us, that without them we would be incomplete. But here is the profound truth: letting go doesn't make you less, it makes you more. In letting go of the past, you are not losing anything real. You are simply freeing yourself from the illusion that the past defines you. When you let go, you are not erasing your past or pretending it never happened. You are simply seeing it for what it is, an experience that has passed, that has played its part in shaping you, but that no longer needs to occupy space in your present. By letting go, you are making room for something new. You are creating space for the present moment to unfold without the weight of old baggage, without the constant pull of what once was. This release is not something that happens all at once. It is a process, a gradual softening of the hold the past has on you. It's not about forgetting, but about shifting your focus from the past to the present. Each time you catch yourself drifting back into old stories, old regrets, or old pain, you can gently remind yourself that those moments are no longer here. They have served their purpose, and now you you are free to step into this moment, unburdened with a fresh perspective. Letting go is a gentle act of kindness toward yourself. It is an acknowledgement that you no longer need to carry the weight of what has already happened. In doing so, you free yourself to experience life as it is, here and now, with an open heart and an open mind. You allow yourself to move with the flow of life, unencumbered by the past, and in that flow you discover a sense of freedom and peace that cannot be found by holding on. To let go of the past doesn't mean to reject it or to pretend it never happened. It's not about denying the reality of what has shaped you. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Letting go begins with acceptance, with seeing the past exactly as it was, without judgment, without clinging, without resistance. You acknowledge the experiences, the mistakes, the heartaches, and the lessons, but you do so without attachment, without allowing them to define you or limit your present. Acceptance is not resignation. It's not saying, this is all I am because of what I've been through. It's a deep understanding that while the past has influenced you, it does not own you. We tend to get stuck in the belief that if something happened to us, it must still hold power over us. We build identities around these experiences, around our pain and our triumphs, as if they are permanent fixtures. But the reality is that they are simply moments in time, and time has moved on. What remains now is your interpretation of those moments, the stories you've created around them. When you accept the past fully, you see it for what it truly is, a series of events that have come and gone. You don't need to hold on to them or push them away. They simply exist as part of your history, but they do not need to shape your present. This acceptance frees you from the internal struggle of trying to rewrite the past, of wishing things were different, of holding on to the emotions tied to those memories. So often we resist the past because we haven't fully accepted it. We replay events in our minds, thinking about what we could have done differently, or we hold on to the pain as if it is a way of keeping control over what happened. But this resistance only traps us. It keeps us entangled in a web of thoughts and emotions that continue to weigh us down. By accepting the past, by truly seeing it without the need to change or relive it, you free yourself from that entanglement. This kind of acceptance is not passive. It's a conscious choice to stop fighting with what has already happened. It's the realization that nothing in the past can be changed, but the way you relate to it can. When you stop resisting the past, you create space for healing, for growth, for transformation. You begin to see that the past was simply a part of your journey, not the entirety of it. Each experience, no matter how painful or joyful, has been a stepping stone bringing you to this moment. But you don't need to carry those stones with you any longer. They've served their purpose. Letting go, then, is not about erasing the past or burying it. It's about acknowledging it with compassion and allowing it to rest in its rightful place behind you. You can look back on your past with a sense of understanding, even gratitude for the lessons it has offered, but without feeling the need to hold on to it or let it dictate who you are now. Acceptance brings peace. And in that peace you discover the freedom to live fully in the present, unburdened by the weight of what has already been. Accept the past without attachment is to recognize that you are no longer the person who lived through those experiences. You have grown, you have changed, and you are continually evolving. The past, while a part of your story, is not the final word. It is simply a chapter that has been written, and you are free to turn the page. This acceptance allows you to move forward with a lighter heart, with the understanding that while the past has shaped you, it does not define your present or limit your future. Life is like a river, always flowing, always moving forward, never stagnant. It has its currents, its eddies, its twists and turns, but it never stops. And just as a river cannot hold on to the water that has already passed through, you cannot hold on to the moments of your past. The water that flowed by is gone, replaced by new streams, fresh and untouched. Yet we often try to hold on to the past, as if we can freeze time, as if we can capture a moment and make it last forever. But in doing so, we resist the very nature of life, which is movement, change, and constant renewal. Think about it, no matter how much you try, you cannot step into the same river twice. The river has changed, and so have you. The water you stepped into yesterday has flowed downstream. New water has taken its place. The same is true of life. The person you were, the experiences you had, the emotions you felt, they are like water that has already passed. They cannot be recaptured. Trying to hold on to them only causes tension, frustration, and suffering. Yet we cling. We cling to the moments that brought us joy, wishing we could relive them. We cling to the moments of pain, replaying them in our minds, as though by holding on to them, we can somehow change them or gain control over what has already happened. But just like a river, life keeps moving forward, regardless of our attempts to hold on to the past. The more we try to grasp the water, the more it slips through our fingers. This is not to say that the past didn't matter. Like the water that nourishes the earth as it flows, your past experiences have contributed to your growth, to who you are now. They have shaped the landscape of your life, carving out valleys and creating new paths. But just as the river doesn't dwell on the water that has already passed, neither should you dwell on the moments that have already gone by. The past has served its purpose, it has nourished you, taught you, shaped you, but it is no longer here. To try to hold on to the past is to resist the natural flow of life. It is to stand in the middle of the river, reaching back for the water that has already moved on, while the current of the present moment continues to pull you forward. And in that resistance we find struggle. We feel as though life is passing us by, but in fact it is we who are refusing to flow with it. Life invites you to flow, to move with it, to trust in the direction it is taking you. Just as the river knows its course, life knows how to carry you forward. When you let go of the past, when you stop trying to hold on to what is already gone, you allow yourself to move with the current, to experience the freshness of each new moment as it comes. You allow yourself to be present, to feel the vitality of life as it unfolds. And here's the beauty: the river doesn't need your control to flow. It moves on its own, effortlessly, naturally. In the same way, your life doesn't require you to cling to the past in order to move forward. Letting go of the past is not a loss, but a return to the natural rhythm of life. It is a surrender to the flow, a trust in the unfolding of the present moment, and a recognition that the past, like the water that has flowed downstream, has already fulfilled its purpose. By letting go, you align yourself with the movement of life. You stop resisting the flow, and in that surrender, you discover a profound sense of freedom and peace. You are no longer burdened by what has been, no longer caught in the currents of regret or nostalgia. Instead, you are open to the new waters of the present, allowing life to carry you forward into new experiences, new opportunities, and new possibilities. When we think about our past, we often find ourselves entangled in a web of emotions: regret, guilt, nostalgia, even anger. These feelings are powerful, and they can seem very real, almost tangible. Yet, if you pause and examine them closely, you will realize that these emotions are just that, feelings. They are fleeting, ever-changing, and often rooted in the stories we tell ourselves about our experiences. The irony is that we have the power to reshape these stories, to reframe the narrative, and in doing so, we can redefine our relationship with our past. Our minds are extraordinary storytellers. They take events and weave them into narratives that can either empower us or imprison us. When we hold on to feelings of regret or guilt, we often create a narrative that tells us we are defined by our mistakes, that we are less than we could be because of what has happened. But if we can step back and observe this process, we can see that we are not the story we tell. We are the awareness behind that story. We are the observer, the consciousness that is capable of witnessing our thoughts and feelings without becoming entangled in them. Letting go of the past means allowing yourself to feel your emotions without letting them dictate your reality. It's okay to feel regret or sadness, but those feelings do not need to be the core of your identity. When we acknowledge our emotions, we can observe them, understand their roots, and then let them pass, like clouds drifting across the sky. This practice of emotional awareness allows us to step back and see the bigger picture, to recognize that our feelings, while valid, do not define who we are. Embracing the unknown can often feel daunting, especially when we are so accustomed to the comfort of familiarity, even if that familiarity comes with pain. The past, with all its memories and experiences, can create a false sense of security. We think we know what it holds, and in a world full of uncertainties, that perceived security can feel comforting. But here lies the paradox: true growth and transformation can only occur when we are willing to step into the unknown, to venture beyond the shores of what we already know. Imagine for a moment that you are a seed buried in the earth. The past is the soil that has nurtured you, that has provided the nutrients for your growth. But if the seed remains buried, if it clings to the familiar confines of the soil, it will never sprout, never see the light of day. It is only by breaking free, pushing through the darkness and into the unknown that the seed can blossom into its full potential. This is the same journey each of us must undertake. The unknown is not something to be feared. It is a vast, open space filled with endless possibilities. When you let go of the past, you are not walking into a void, you are stepping into a realm of potential. Life, at its core, is an adventure, and every moment carries the promise of new experiences, new lessons, and new relationships. The past is like a closed door, and the unknown is the open field waiting just beyond it, filled with the richness of life, yet to be lived. Letting go of the past allows you to confront the unknown with a sense of curiosity, rather than apprehension. Instead of seeing it as a threat, you can view it as an opportunity to discover who you are beyond the stories you have told yourself. In that open space, you have the chance to redefine your identity, to explore new passions, new interests, and new relationships that can only exist in the future. Embracing the unknown requires a shift in mindset. Instead of seeing it as a place of uncertainty, recognize that it is a fertile ground for creativity and self-discovery. The unknown is where the magic happens. It is where dreams are born, and where you can begin to manifest the life you truly desire. When you release the grip of the past, you become more attuned to the present moment, and in that attunement, you can sense the opportunities that are all around you. Of course, the journey into the unknown will not always be easy. There will be moments of discomfort, moments when you may feel lost or uncertain. But it is precisely in those moments that you have the opportunity to grow, to expand your horizons, and to learn about your resilience and strength. Life is not about avoiding discomfort, it's about embracing it, knowing that it is often through challenges that we discover our true selves. When you let go of the past and venture into the unknown, you are saying yes to life. You are opening yourself to the unexpected, allowing life to surprise you in ways you could never have anticipated. You are inviting new experiences that can shape you, refine you, and ultimately lead you to a deeper understanding of yourself and your purpose. And as you navigate this uncharted territory, you will find that you are not alone. Life has a way of guiding you, of bringing the right people, the right opportunities, and the right lessons into your path. The unknown is not a barren wasteland, it is a vibrant ecosystem full of potential connections and discoveries waiting to unfold. When you are willing to embrace it, you will find that life becomes a beautiful tapestry of experiences, woven together by your courage to let go and move forward. By stepping into the unknown, you become a co-creator of your life. You move from being a passive observer, anchored in the past, to an active participant in the unfolding of your future. You take the reins of your journey, charting a course that is uniquely yours, guided by your intuition, your passions, and your dreams. In this space, you can redefine what is possible, allowing your life to become a reflection of your true self, rather than a shadow of your past. To truly let go of the past is to embrace the essence of living in the moment. So often we find ourselves ensnared in a mental dialogue that keeps us anchored in what has already transpired. We rehearse old conversations, relive past mistakes, and cling to memories as if they define our reality. Yet, the present moment is where life is truly happening. It is the only time we can fully engage, experience, and create. To recognize this is to understand the transformative power of mindfulness. Mindfulness invites us to step back from the whirlwind of thoughts that can so easily sweep us away into the past. It asks us to breathe, to center ourselves, and to connect with the here and now. When we practice mindfulness, we become aware of our thoughts and feelings without judgment. We observe them as they arise, recognizing them as transient phenomena that come and go like clouds in the sky. This practice allows us to see that while our thoughts about the past may seem compelling, they do not dictate our reality. Instead, they are simply passing reflections of a moment that is no longer here. Living in the moment does not mean ignoring the past, rather it involves integrating those experiences into the fabric of our present without allowing them to dominate our awareness. Every moment is an opportunity for fresh beginnings, a chance to experience life anew, unencumbered by the baggage of yesterday. When you truly engage with the present, you open yourself up to the richness of life. You become more aware of the sights, sounds, and sensations around you, allowing you to fully immerse yourself in each experience as it unfolds. Consider the beauty of a sunset. When you stand there fully present, you witness the colors shifting and blending in ways that can never be replicated. If your mind is preoccupied with the past, you may miss the profound beauty of that moment. You may miss the joy of simply being alive. existence unfolding before your eyes. The present moment is a gift, and to unwrap it, you must be willing to let go of the distractions of what was. In this dance of existence, each moment is unique, and it deserves your full attention. By letting go of the past, you are granting yourself permission to fully engage with the world as it is. You become more attuned to your own thoughts, emotions, and desires, and you allow your intuition to guide you. This heightened awareness creates space for spontaneity, creativity, and connection. It opens the door to new experiences and new relationships that can only blossom in the fertile soil of the present. Moreover, living in the moment fosters resilience. When you are anchored in the present, you learn to navigate life's challenges with grace and clarity. You become less reactive to the weight of past disappointments, instead viewing them as mere stepping stones along your journey. In this way, you cultivate a sense of inner strength and adaptability, enabling you to embrace whatever comes your way. As you begin to practice mindfulness, you may find that moments of stillness become increasingly valuable. These moments allow you to pause, to reflect, and to reconnect with yourself. In those quiet spaces, you can listen to the whispers of your heart, guiding you toward your true desires and aspirations. You become more aligned with your authentic self, and in doing so, you allow your past to inform your present without controlling it. Letting go of the past is ultimately an act of liberation. It is the recognition that your life is a canvas, and each moment is a brushstroke that adds depth and richness to your experience. You are the artist, and by living in the moment, you give yourself the freedom to create a masterpiece that is uniquely yours. By embracing the present, you not only free yourself from the chains of the past, but also invite a sense of wonder and possibility into your life. You realize that the future is not a destination to be reached, but a journey to be lived. Each moment offers an invitation to explore, to learn, and to grow, reminding you that the beauty of life lies not in clinging to what has been, but in dancing with what is. This dance of life unfolds in the present, where the true magic exists, waiting for you to step into its embrace. As we stand at the crossroads of our existence, we come to a profound realization: letting go of our past is not an act of forgetting, it is an act of liberation. It is the recognition that our experiences, while valuable, do not have to define us. Just as the river flows unceasingly, carrying with it the remnants of yesterday while nurturing the landscape of today, so too can we flow with the currents of life. To release the past is to step into the fullness of our being, to embrace the present moment as a canvas upon which we can paint our aspirations, our dreams, and our newfound identity. It invites us to engage with life in a way that is vibrant, alive, and ever-changing. Letting go, we discover the beauty of impermanence, the gift of change, and the potential that lies within each new moment. Life, in all its unpredictability, invites us to be courageous. It asks us to let go of the burdens that weigh us down, to free ourselves from the stories that keep us shackled to a time that has already passed. And in that act of courage, we create space for joy, for growth, and for the wondrous unfolding of our true selves. I urge you to embrace this journey of letting go. Trust in the flow of life. Allow the past to rest gently behind you, as a teacher but not a master. Step boldly into the unknown, for it is there that life truly begins. Each moment is an invitation to rediscover who you are, to connect deeply with the world around you, and to live fully in the vibrant tapestry of existence. In this way, we honor our past while celebrating the infinite possibilities of our present and future. There is no problem of life, in the sense in which we ordinarily use that phrase. And that seems an almost astounding affront to our common sense. Life not a problem. We see it as nothing but problems. We regard ourselves in a morning, noon, and night struggle to solve the great problem of existence. For some people, this problem is problems that are not problems at all. They only look like problems. So when we tackle, you see, impossible questions, things go round and round and never come out. Now, take for example, some of the many ghosts which haunt our minds. We say, for example, that we all have an instinct to survive. And a lot of people thus treat the problem of life as, how am I to survive? And one might almost be a little cautious about relieving people of this problem, lest they should lose the impetus to go on doing their work. But that also, impetus to go on doing your work, is another ghost. We think we are driven, you see. We think that what we do has these mysterious things behind it. So it's very important simply to keep your eye on what is being done and to describe that. And if you describe it clearly enough and well enough, you will probably find the ghost of instinct disappeared. Thus, you see, when we talk about an instinct for survival, what does this say? What is the evidence of the fact that there's an instinct for survival? There is no evidence except that, in fact, people survive until they don't. And this is rather odd, because what happens to the instinct for survival when people don't survive? So, in this way, we find that when we try to explain some kind of behavior, some kind of activity, by supposing that there is a motivating force, a sort of incarnate spook behind the whole thing, what has really happened is that we haven't described what's going on sufficiently clearly. Now this comes out in another way. When we try to describe anything at all, and think that we are describing something that, as it were, exists all by itself. As I've often said, we are so bugged by the notion of stuff, you see. Stuff acting, stuff doing things. But all that is, you see, is that the world strikes us as being material until we examine it closely. In other words, a distant nebula in the heavens looks like a solid star until you turn a giant telescope on it and you make out the clear pattern of a spiral nebula. In other words, the concept of stuff is a sensation that we get when we haven't examined things sufficiently closely, or when our instruments are not fine enough to penetrate what we're observing. But when the instruments are fine enough, what we get instead is pattern. And pattern is simply a form of behavior, of activity. Consider this in another way. Let's go back to the human organism and ask the question, well, what about its shape? How is it that a human organism is contained? All the organs are kept in by the skin. Well, we will describe, of course, the structure of skin and how it is that it holds together. But then we'll soon find out that we're also talking about the surrounding air, which impinges upon the human skin with a pressure of about 15 pounds per square inch, so that if it weren't there, we'd explode. Now, so the question arises, what is keeping the organism in shape? And we find out that it is not only what is going on inside the skin that keeps it in shape, but also what's going on outside the skin. And when we go on to describe this still more carefully, we discover that it isn't quite correct to say that it is the air that is doing this, or that it is the confining ourselves to a description of what has happened. And as we do this, we get a peculiarly clarified picture of the world, without all sorts of ghosts. And it is in this way that we also begin to be able to have some preliminary intuition or sensation of the meaning of the fact that life is not a problem. In other words, not a conflict between ourselves and our environment. This conception of life turns out to be basically phony. Once upon a time, there was a Zen student who quoted an old Buddhist poem to his teacher, which says, "The voices of torrents are from one great tongue. The lions of the hills are the pure body of Buddha." "Isn't that right?" he said to the teacher. "It is," said the teacher, "but it's a pity to say so. It would be, of course, much better if this occasion were celebrated with no talk at all, and if I addressed you in the manner of the ancient teachers of Zen. I should hit the microphone with my fan and leave. Because Zen is a way of life, a state of being that is not possible to embrace in any concept whatsoever. So that any concepts, any ideas, any words that I shall put across to you this evening will have as their object showing you the limitations of words and of thinking. Now then, if one must try to say something about what Zen is, and I want to do this by way of introduction, I must make it emphatic that Zen, in its essence, is not a doctrine. There's nothing you're supposed to believe in. It's not a philosophy in our sense, that is to say, a set of ideas, an intellectual net in which one tries to catch the fish of reality. Actually, the fish of reality is more like water. It always slips through the net, and in water, you know, when you get into it, there's nothing to hang on to. All this universe is like water. It is fluid, it is transient, it is changing. And when you're thrown into the water after being accustomed to living on the dry land, you're not used to the idea of swimming. You try to stand on the water, you try to catch hold of it, and as a result you drown. The only way to survive in the water, and this refers particularly to the waters of modern philosophical confusion, where God is dead, metaphysical propositions are meaningless, and there's really nothing to hang on to, because we're all just falling apart. And the only thing to do under those circumstances is to learn how to swim. And to swim, you relax. You let go, you give yourself to the water, and you have to know how to breathe in the right way. And then you find that the water holds you up. Indeed, in a certain way, you become the water. And so in the same way, one might say, if one attempted to, again I say misleadingly, to put Zen into any sort of concept, it simply comes down to this. That in this universe there is one great energy, and we have no name for it. People have tried various names for it, like God, like Brahman, like Tao. But in the West, the word God has got so many funny associations attached to it that most of us are bored. When people say God the Father Almighty, most people feel funny inside. And so we like to hear new words. We like to hear about Tao, about Brahma, about Shinyo, and Tathata, and such strange names from the Far East, because they don't carry the same associations of mawkish sanctimony and funny meanings from the past. And actually, some of these words that the Buddhists use for the basic energy of the world really don't mean anything at all. The word tathata, which is translated from the Sanskrit into suchness or thusness or something like that, really means something more like da-da-da, based on the word tantra. Sanskrit means that. In Sanskrit it said tattvam asi, that thou art, or in modern American, you're it. But da, that's the first sound a baby makes when it comes into the world. Because the baby looks around and says, da, 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 da. And fathers flatter themselves and think it's saying da, da, which means daddy. But according to Buddhist philosophy, all this universe is one tathata. That means 10,000 functions or 10,000 things, one suchness. And we're all one suchness. And that means suchness comes and goes like everything else, because this whole world is an on and off system. As the Chinese say, it's the yang and the yin. And therefore it consists of now you see it, now you don't, here you are, here you aren't. Because that's the very nature of energy, to be like waves. Waves have crests and troughs. Only we, being under a certain kind of sleepiness or illusion, imagine that the trough is going to overcome the wave or the crest. The yin, the dark principle, is going to overcome the yang or the light principle. And that off is finally going to triumph over on. And we, shall I say, bug ourselves by indulging in that illusion. Gee, supposing God was doing now, wouldn't that be terrible? And so we constantly
This one was good.
trembling.
I like this one.
Thinking that it may, because after all, isn't it odd that anything exists? It's most peculiar. It requires effort, it requires energy, and it would be so much easier for there to have been nothing at all. Therefore we think, well, since being, since the inside of things is so much effort, you always give up after a while and you sink back into death. But death is just the other face of energy. And it's the rest, the not being anything around, that produces something around, just in the same way that you can't have solid without space, or space without solid. When you wake up to this, and realize that the more it changes, the more it's the same thing, as the French say, that you are really a playing of this one energy, and there is nothing else but that it is you, but that for you to be always you would be an insufferable bore. And therefore, it is arranged that you stop being you after a while, and then come back as someone else altogether. And so when you find that out, you become full of energy and delight. As Blake said, energy is eternal delight. And you suddenly see through the whole sham of things. You realize you're that. We won't put a name on it. You're that. And you can't be anything else. So you are relieved of fundamental terror. means, though, that fundamentally, deep down within you, you will be able to be human. So it is then that, if I may put it metaphorically, Zhuangzi said, the perfect man employs his mind as a mirror. It grasps nothing, it refuses nothing, it receives but does not keep. In other words, this is to be put it very strictly into our modern idiom. This is to live without hang-ups. That is to say, to be able to drift like a cloud and flow like water. Seeing that all life is a magnificent illusion, a playing of energy, and there is absolutely nothing fundamentally to be afraid of. Lao-Tzu puts it in this way: the great Tao flows everywhere, both to the left and to the right. It loves and nourishes all things, but does not lord it over them. And when merits are accomplished, it lays no claim. The more, therefore, you relinquish power, trust others, the more powerful you become. But in such a way that instead of having to lie awake nights, controlling everything, you do it beautifully by trusting the job to everyone else. They carry it on for you.
Oh, all right.
So you can go to sleep at night, trust your nervous system to wake you up in the morning. You can even tell it, I want to wake up at 6 o'clock. It'll wake you up just like an alarm clock. This seems a sort of paradox to say this, but the principle of unity, of coming to a sense of oneness with the whole of the rest of the universe, is not to try to obtain power over the rest of the universe. That will only disturb it and antagonize it and make it seem less one with you than ever. The way to become one with the universe is to trust it as another, as you would another, and say, let's see what you're going to do. But in doing that, you see, in saying that to everything else that you have been taught to think is not you, you are also saying it to yourself. Because finally, as I pointed out, you do not know where your decisions come from. They pop up like hiccups. And when you make a decision, people have a great deal of anxiety about making decisions. There's this guy who, farmer, who ordered a helper. Man, come in. And found he was an extraordinarily efficient worker. Because the first day, he put him on sawing logs. And he sawed more logs than anybody had ever sawed. It was fantastic. All done in one day. The next day, putting on many fences. And the fences around the farm. One day, they had the whole thing done. So he thought, what am I going to do with this guy? So he took him down into a basement and said, look, here are all the potatoes that are coming from this harvest. And I want you to sort them into 3 groups. Those that we sell, those that we use for seeding, and those that we throw away. So he left it at that. At the end of the day, the laborer came back and said, well, that's enough, mister. I quit. decision up. So when we decide, we're always worrying, did I think this over long enough? Did I take enough data into consideration? And if you think it through, you find you never could take enough data into consideration. The data for a decision in any given situation is infinite. So what you do is, you go through the motions of thinking out what you will do about this. And then when the time comes to act, you make a snap judgment. I mean, I'm speaking a little extremely, making some fun of it, and so on, because after all, we do occasionally get the vague outlines of things, make the right decision on rational grounds. But we fortunately forget the variables that could have interfered with this coming out right. It's amazing how often it works. But warriors are people who think of all the variables beyond their control, what might happen. So then when you make a decision, it works out all right. I think very little of it has much to do with your conscious intent. But somehow or other, you are able to decide and control things more harmoniously if you delegate authority. Why, very great businessmen are those who can delegate authority. Trust others to work for them. Because those are people developing businesses on the same basic structure that